are sad because we know that this is the last time that we shall be able to worship in the Holy Eucharist in this church, in these familiar surroundings which many of you have learned to love very deeply. It is the last time you will be able to sit in these places and to kneel on these familiar old cassocks. And for the past 122 years, St. John's Church has been a tool in God's hand, a tool which he has used so effectively to build up the kingdom in the hearts and in the minds of all the great number of people who have worshipped here and who have loved this place. You have already heard of something that is going to be, some of the things that are going to be done with the proceeds of the sale of this site. We hope that it is going to be used to build many other churches. And many of the people who have lived here and worshipped here in this church, in this neighborhood, and are now scattered in the new townships, will be able to worship in this way in churches for which St. John's has been responsible. St. John's, Watercount Street, has taken a share in building.
Stabilizing, in a sense that it brought community together, that whole Greenpoint, Lotus Street, Ebenezer Road, Docks, that area, that it brought people together, and I think that's where we found our roots. That's where we built up friendships as growing up together. People like Matt, Eddie, George, and other people. We all grew up together. We all grew on each other. The kind of relationships that one doesn't build up easily. Yeah. And I think after many years, we had great experiences there. That's where I met John with the Sea Scouts down in the wall, and that's where we learned to be naughty people.
With St. John's congregation, we never also had a dull moment. We would have our services, continuous services, and we would have regular dances. The funniest part is when it came to New Year's Eve, St. John's always had an 11 o'clock service, and when that service came out at 11 o'clock, the whole congregation would go to the New Year's Eve bowl in Hope Street. We had the Oddfellows Hall, and we would go dancing from after church.
That time, we didn't have any venues where we could go to, or places. We were so, our community, if you hear about St. John's, yeah, come on, and everybody, we make ourselves ready there, because we know we're going to have a grand time. It used to be enjoyable to go there, and we know you can enjoy it, and it's safe. Our parents didn't worry if we're going there. That wasn't, when we were still youngsters, that time it was clean fun.
And that is also one of the remarkable things of St. John's, was that the weddings, the baptisms, the funerals.
A lot of us joined the Scouts. We didn't want to join the Sea Scouts. Their pants were shorter than ours. So we went up to the Liberman Institute, in a sense, and that way the Scouts was where there's the soccer teams. Still remember the soccer teams, where I almost broke my leg, so I gave up soccer. Playing against the other churches, and we're the Eagles Club. This was the communications through the church that we had contact with those kind of organizations.
Sundays at St. John's was our day. It was our home away from home. It was our spiritual home. It was where the Loader Street and the District 6 met together, and the boys and the girls all met. And most Sundays, the boys of the choir would walk home with us, and we'd have this big 3-course meal. Gladys is our house, Bloemhofflands. There we all were. Sat there, just communicated, socialized, came back to even song, and after that, everybody went home.
I was only at the St. John's for 17 years, having the Sea Scouts there. The Scouts came from all different parts of the Cape. Lansdowne, Claremont, I stayed in Claremont, Harvey. So we came from all over. And they used to travel by train to town, get on the station at Harvey on a Saturday afternoon and come to Scouts.
When I was growing up, it was a very exciting street. There was never a dull moment there. People would stand out on their stoops. Used to watch all the youngsters playing football, rugby, soccer. Kennedy time, there was Kennedy. Top time, there was top time. And at night time, we would play like the youngsters were playing Blikkie Spy. They would play hide and seek. You would meet your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever. That's how things were in those days.
We used to run around, we go up to the mountain, go here and go there, everything was surround us. Our job situation was all in town and everything. But once the movement came out, we had to forcibly move, and you can imagine. It was terrible, man.
The closing of St. John's was detrimental to everybody because everybody knew each other. They knew each other. We got on well together.
Church closed early in 70. Yeah. So it was 1969. If you remember that it was brought to our attention that would hire the church at 1,000 rand per month for the time that we were going to have it. And they would decide against it because 1,000 rand at that time was a lot of money. And
the Pennies, or Peter Penny and his company,
yes,
they bought the church.
That's correct.
And then try to make a deal for until we get a new church.
That is correct.
We could
Use the
let
church.
the church from them.
That's right. That's right. At 1,000 rand per month.
It is like rubbing salt into the wound, isn't it?
That was really sad, man. It was sad times that day. You'll never believe it. I used to sit and I used to cry sometimes when I think of it. And when I dream, let me explain something. I dream always from my youth, Loader Street area. I think that was my happiest times in my life.
There was a sense of loss, regret, and the question also, why St. John's? You know, was it money problems or was it a political thing?
The church has money. The church could have built the churches elsewhere long ago. It didn't need to sell St. John's.
Being the outsider, looking in, I think it also had a lot to do with the political situation, where people were being moved out of the area, you know, to make way for white people.
Why is our church being sold? We don't know anything about this. How did it come about? It was decided by the diocese to sell the church. And then the Bishop Suffragan, who was Bishop Russell, attended the meeting. And we gave him a mouthful. And I think there, Judge Abrams was one of them who gave them a mouthful about the selling of that church. The dedication, the family spirit that was there. We were all a family. And there was, as a matter of fact, some of the Mrs. Kennemeyer, the old lady, was crying because of what is happening. There was others that was elderly that came from the other side of town. They were crying because this was not on the cards. We didn't know about it.
When the hierarchy, when people like Van der Bijl, who was the archdeacon at the time, came to speak to our people, the decision had already been made. All he was doing was to convey to the church council at the time, who were now these, well, we love them all, but they were damn subservient. They gave respect where in fact respect was not due. They allowed themselves to be walked over, even by the church.
The diocese had taken it upon itself to assist the government at the time, which had already decreed that the people living up on the slopes of Signal Hill and around the corner of Signal Hill into the Greenpoint area, that the persons should be moved out. And the church was not protesting against this, which I expected it to have done. The people of St. John's were dispersed in such a vicious way that you would not have had the entire St. John's family right here where St. John's Belgravia is. They spread all over the Cape Flats, which was part of the purpose of the Group Areas Act, is to just break the spirit that might exist. So people were dispersed. Families were dispersed, we know that.
Some died because they didn't want to move. Our people did not expect, our parents did not expect for the church to do that. And when we had moved, wherever we had moved to, constantly our parents would say to us, this is not my home.
The facts still remain. The facts still remain. And I think that's the part that hurts. And that's the part that my mother died of a sad and broken heart.
I don't believe the church cared. And that was part of my anger. The church did not care enough.
Just why? Because when I look at my life in Mitchell's Plain, Lentegeur, where eventually I had to move to in 1980, there was no church when I got there. The people also had to work. There was church in classrooms. I didn't have that connection. And I said to myself, I don't have that spiritual connection. Where must I go to? Jump the train because I didn't have transport. Get the train on a Sunday morning, come to the cathedral. And that's what I did with my kids for 13 years of my life. Which when I look back on, it's just lost. I put it in a little box with St. John's, locked it, I've thrown it away. This has started up, and it started a lot of emotions, it started a lot of trauma, it started a lot of nightmares, literally. Something which I suffer from. And it's all because the authorities at that time and the church sold it. The church buckled under a regime which they knew was wrong. And today the church stands and the church says the government must be transparent. But has the church ever apologized for that move, for siding with that?
What has happened historically over the centuries was not falsely recorded, that the church has the propensity and has always had the propensity to be weak, to allow itself to be bought over either for pecuniary reasons or for political reasons. That the church was again revealing to us that it is part of a system. And in this particular case, it was part of the system that we know or refer to as the Apartheid system.
The absolute irony of ironies is that as we speak now, we're speaking 16 years after the end of apartheid. And the church has done nothing.
It has not apologized yet to the people.
It's done nothing. We have been hurt to a point where we can't cry anymore, but where we will commit ourselves to bring back something of what we have lost. At the end of the final service, it was like the stripping of the altars on a Maundy Thursday. Except this time around, I mean, you knew that the things weren't going to go back on the altar, and the altars were not going to be dressed again. None of the candles was going to go back. This time around, there's not going to be an Easter.